Sometimes we think that we're looking at the icons, and I don't mean to creep anybody out, but the icons mostly are looking at us, right? So when you're praying there, you're praying with the icons to remind you that you're in the company of the saints. There's a cloud of witnesses that are around you. So you're doing things that are out of this world. Hi, I'm Father Gary. Welcome back to Armed with Faith. Really excited to be here with you today. We're going to talk about icons. Icons are something that you're going to see in every Orthodox church that you walk into. The icons tell a wonderful story. See, to have read 200 years ago, you had to be wealthy to have that ability to read. Stories were told with pictures, and pictures tell a wonderful story. But if you're looking at the pictures and you don't know what you're looking at, you have to really have an explanation of it. So you walk into an Orthodox church and you see all these icons. You're going to wonder who's who and what's what. Here, in today's episode, I'm going to talk about the different characteristics of the icons in the Byzantine church and the Byzantine tradition so that you can realize who you're looking at when you're looking at the icons. We'll talk about veneration of icons. We'll talk about the style of icons, just a few different things that we'll look at today. In the icon here to my left of the Virgin Mary, you're going to see that it's a woman with a child, right? But we know if we look at it, there's certain things that tell us that this is the Virgin Mary and this is her Christ child. So first off, with the Virgin Mary, you're going to look at the letters to the top of her head here in this icon. You have the first letter is M and a Rho. That looks like a P in English, but it's the Rho in Greek. So the M and the Rho. And then here you have the Theta and the Ypsilon. So you have the first letter M and Rho, Miter, mother, right? Theou, of God, mother of God, right? Theos is God. So you have Miter, Theou. So you see these letters above a woman, it's most likely the Virgin Mary. What also tells us that this is the Virgin Mary is the three stars that you'll find on her shoulders and on her forehead. The stars represent her virginity now, then, and always, right? So she's an ever virgin her entire life. We know that this is Christ in several ways. The first one is every icon of Christ should have a halo behind his head, and in the halo is a cross. So you'll see this cross right here in his head. Next to him, though, you also have letters. You have an ICXC, which is what that looks like in English, but it's not an ICXC. It's ancient Greek. It's the iota and the sigma. Sigma in ancient Greek is an S. The he and the sigma. So the first and last letters of Isus, Jesus, Christos, Christ, Isus Christos. So we know that this is the mother of God from the letters and the stars. We know that this is Christ from the cross behind his head and the word Isus Christos. We also see that Jesus is blessing here. So icons tell a wonderful story. This icon is called Eleusa, most merciful one. They have the mother and the child cheek to cheek, showing great love and affection for one another. So every Orthodox church that you walk into has an iconostasis, an icon stand. The icon stand is important because it separates the nave, where the people sit, from the sanctuary, where the altar is. Now, many people wonder why you would separate the two, why there would be something that separates them, because Christ came and tore down the curtain that separates them. But if you were to do something, intimate, you would want a little bit of privacy, right? So what happens in the altar, what happens in the sanctuary is really mystic, is really intimate. And so the church puts an iconostasis there. In every Orthodox church, the iconostasis has differences, but for the most part, they're all the same. If you ever come into an Orthodox church and you look at the icon stand, the iconostasis, and you try to study it, you'll realize that the icon of Christ is always the first icon to the right. You know that that's Christ because you see the ICXC over his head, Isus Christos. He's also got his hand where he's blessing, and he's also got the letters Omicron, Omega, and Ni in the halo, and those letters say Oon, the one who is. Who is the one who is? God, right? Oon, the one who is God, is the same person that greeted Moses at the burning bush, right? Moses asks at the burning bush, "Who are you?" He says, "I am the one who is. I am." Oon, the one who is. So the first icon to the left of every Orthodox church from the royal doors is the Virgin Mary. How do we know that that's the Virgin Mary? Because we see that she's got the letters MP, or the mi and the ro, and the theu, the theta, and the epsilon above her head there. So miter theu. The icon immediately to the left of Christ, or our right of Christ, is always the icon of St. John the Baptist. St. John the Baptist is there, and look, it looks just like Christ, right? Got that same kind of features that we think Christ would have, but we know it's not Christ because we look in his halo, we don't see the cross, and we look at his hand. What is his hand doing? He's pointing. Why is St. John the Baptist pointing? Because he's always taking the attention off of himself and putting it on to Christ. He's the forerunner. We know that St. John is telling us there's one coming who's greater than him. Now, here's where we get a little bit complicated. The icon to the left of the Virgin Mary, her right, our left, as we're looking at the iconostasis, is always the icon of the name of the church. So if the name of the church is Saint Gerasimos, you're going to find an icon of Saint Gerasimos there. If it's an icon of Saint George, you're going to find an icon of Saint George there. If the name of the church is Saint Demetrios, you're going to find an icon of Saint Demetrios there. Saint Barbara, you're going to find an icon of Saint Barbara there. Here at the cathedral, we're named after Hagia Sophia, Holy Wisdom, Saint Sophia. So in that icon there, we have God depicted as an old man, the God the Father. We have the Lamb sitting at his feet, and we have the Holy Spirit coming down as a dove. That's a whole other story. We'll talk about that another time. Then the doors of the iconostasi are guarded by the archangels. On the south door, we have the Archangel Gabriel, and on the north door, we have the Archangel Michael. If you ever want to know how to get into the altar or the sanctuary of an Orthodox church, look for the icons of the archangels. So here we have the icon of the resurrection. In the icon of the resurrection, we know that this is Christ because he's got the cross in his halo behind his head, or on the one who is, as we said before. Now, you'll also notice that Christ is pulling two people up out of their tombs, right? Who are the two people he's pulling up out of the tombs? Which is Adam and Eve. Now, how did Christ conquer death? He conquered death through his death on the cross, right? So he's got his victorious stance over the cross there. And who's the cross over? It's the devil himself. We usually think of the devil, and we think of the devil with having a red cape and horns in his head, but here it's an old man. We know it's not a saint because there's no halo around his head. All the saints have halos around their heads, okay? One thing I want to point out about this icon in particular, just so that you realize it, and it's different in different icons that you'll see. You know when you draw, and you're taught to draw in school, and you draw train tracks, and you want to make the train tracks look like there's depth in the picture, you make the lines get closer as it goes away from you, right? But if you look at Byzantine iconography, it's the opposite. What's in the back is wider than in the front. It's flipped on us. And why is it flipped on us? Because really the icons are looking at us. We're not looking at the icons. The icons are a window into heaven. And so we're looking into heaven. We're witnessing a scene that is actually really looking at us. So as we look at this icon, a few things to point out about the icon of the resurrection here is look at how Christ is grabbing Adam and Eve by their wrists. He wants them out of Hades. You know, if you have children and you've ever crossed the street with your child and the child goes to take a step into the street before you, you're not going to hold out your hand and hope that they put their hand in your hand. You're going to grab them by the wrist because you want to save them, right? Christ is grabbing them by the wrist. He wants them up and out of Hades. He's loosening them from Hades. So you have these wonderful, wonderful, splendid understandings here. Now, when you walk into an Orthodox church, you're going to see people venerating icons. What does it mean to venerate an icon? It means to kiss an icon. You kiss an icon. And you know, our Protestant brothers and sisters get really offended when they see us doing that. They see us kissing an icon, they think, that's idolatry. You shouldn't be doing that. But look, am I kissing the paint and the wood that this is on? This is just a piece of wood. I'm not kissing the paint and the wood. I'm not worshiping the paint and the wood. I'm worshiping the image of what's happening here. I'm worshiping the person who's being depicted here, right? How many of us have never, or maybe nowadays they don't because all of our pictures are on our phones, but in the old days when you used to have a picture in your wallet of somebody you loved or a picture on your nightstand of somebody you loved and you kissed that picture, out of love, right? You're not kissing the glass, the frame, the paper that picture is on. You're not worshiping that. You're worshiping the image of the person who's in there, right? I'm not worshiping this wood and this paint and this plastic and this, what this is all about. I'm worshiping and venerating the event of the resurrection here. So when you see me kissing the icon of the Virgin Mary, you see me venerating an icon of Saint Gerasimos, you see me venerating an icon of Saint Demetrios, I'm not worshiping that item. I'm giving reverence to that saint, to that person. That's why the Orthodox venerate icons. Very important to realize that distinction. Now, what's funny to me is that our Protestant brothers and sisters don't like having any kind of idols in their churches until Christmas time when they put the nativity sets out. You can cut that out. Don't put that in. So when we talk about graven images, we're talking about something that we're putting above and beyond God, right? We're talking about something that is taking the place of God. So that second commandment really isn't really talking about icons like this. It's talking about icons like pop stars that we put above God, like money that we put above God, like a car that we put above God. We're not talking about things that remind us of God. Now, the icons are an opportunity to remind us of God, an opportunity for us to look and to see and to remember what happened in history, what happened in a specific parable, what happened in a pericope of the gospel, what happened in a saint's life, to realize the beauty of that God-inspired moment. If you're using icons in your home and for your prayer corner, and you're utilizing, the icons, and you've got an icon of the Virgin Mary there, you've got an icon of Christ there, and you're saying your prayers, sometimes you're going to say your prayers with your eyes closed, sometimes you're going to say your prayers with your eyes open and you're going to look down, sometimes you're going to look the person in the eye that you're speaking to. So there's no real hard and fast rule of what you're supposed to do when you're praying with the icons, right? But the icons are there to remind you that you're in the presence of God, that God is with you there. And remember, sometimes we think that we're looking at the icons, and I don't mean to creep anybody out, but the icons mostly are looking at us, right? So when you're praying there, you're praying with the icons to remind you that you're in the company of the saints. There's a cloud of witnesses that are around you. So you're doing things that are out of this world. And so having that conversation with God, who's everywhere at all times, is just a representation in that icon of who he is, so that you have a physical thing that you can look at and realize that God is present, right? He's not an imaginary friend. He's not like a shadow that follows you around. God is real. God is there. God is love. And when you're praying and you've got your icons up on the wall, really important to realize that you're putting those things up there so that their love magnifies back to you, and that you realize that there's a struggle there, and that struggle leads to holiness. Yeah, so generally, when you get a new icon, when you get something, a lot of people like to bring it and put it in the altar or in the sanctuary for 40 days, just to have it kind of be sanctified, right? And what does that do? Does it make it special? Does it make it any different? No. You could take the icon home from the bookstore that you buy it from, or wherever you ordered it from, and just take it and put it up on your wall, and it's going to be the icon. But what happens when you bring it and you put it in the church is that you realize that it's something different. It's something special. You're sanctifying it. What does sanctify means? To set it apart, right? You're giving it more value by doing that. So a lot of times people will bring an icon and say, Father, can I keep this in here for 40 days? And the answer is always yes, keep it here. We have a spot where we leave them. We put them there. Sometimes there's a prayer that the people ask that we say over it, and we bless the icon for them. Sometimes it sits there for the 40 days. Sometimes it's 39 days. Sometimes it's 47 days. But for the most part, in and around 40 is what we like to do. People collect icons, and it's like, how many different icons can I get? How many icons can I put on my wall? When I was a brand new priest in Oakland, I started putting up all the icons I had, and I collected as a seminarian in my office in Oakland there, and I put them all up. And a parishioner walked in, who's now a good friend, walked in and said, "You're going to leave all those icons there like that?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "It looks like a Greek taxi cab." If you've been in a Greek taxi cab, they have the icons, right? It's funny, they have the icons all over the dash there. And so I was like, yeah, you don't really need like 6 icons of the Virgin Mary and 7 icons of St. John the Baptist and 4 icons of Christ. One of each is fine, and you have them there. If you ever see my collection, I have I've been blessed with my grandmothers who've passed away. I was able to get a hold of theirs and have their icons, so I know that the icons that they prayed in front of are now in my presence as well, which really makes me feel like I'm connected to them in that way. Icons are more than just art. It's not, and as artistic and as beautiful as they are, and even the iconographer has rules that they have to follow, right? An iconographer can do what they want to do, but there are certain colors they have to use for different things, and they can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to give her a Dodger jersey to wear." It's not art. It's depicting something holy, and so really, the difference between art and icons is that the icons are a means of spiritual practice, a spiritual exercise. Right? Whereas you can sit and stare at an icon, you can say, wow, that's beautiful. And you get further, and you deepen her eyes and, deepen his eyes, and you're looking at it and you realize how warm it is and that they're looking at you. You do the same thing with the Mona Lisa, right? But there's a huge difference between the Mona Lisa and the icon of the Virgin Mary. You're looking at something that's supposed to remind you of heaven, whereas you're looking at a beautiful piece of art otherwise, right? So icons are really, beautiful art, but it's more than just an art. It's more than just a picture. It's a way for us to kind of be in communion with the cloud of witnesses, with the saints, with the holy seasons, with a holy people, and to remember them that way. So when you use your icons, know that you're not kissing the paint, kissing the wood, that you're not making more of it than it is. It's an opportunity to remember God, to remember the saint, to remember the episode, to remember the scene from Scripture or the portion of Christ's life or whatever is being depicted, that it's a remembrance of God.